My name is Kelly Chambly, and I am new at this publicity chair thing in the group. So they asked me to interview you. So that's I'm very excited, by the way, because I like read some of your stuff and
Uh-oh.
the your blog online and your website had me cracking up. Questions, but I guess the one question that I'm a aspiring writer, want to be whatever. So I guess one of my main questions, I guess, is what questions do you what is something that you think is important that people don't ask you, like in these questions? What is something you think that every writer should know, but it doesn't come up as often?
A thing, it's very basic, and I don't get asked it, and people resist it when I talk about it, but it's really important as professional baseline to follow instructions. When you're submitting, read the guidelines, turn it into a checklist, do everything on the checklist. If you decide that something on the checklist is insane, then maybe this is a place you don't want to send something. But simply follow the instructions. There are markets that put an odd little thing in the instructions to see if you read them. And it's good to be on the side of, yes, read them. Um, and if you're ever on the receiving end, if you've judged a contest or been an editor, you know that way more than half of the submissions come in incorrectly done. It's kind of amazing. And
Wow.
a comparable statistic is the federal government has these grant programs where they give away money,
Hmm.
and less than 5% of the applications have followed the instructions. Less than 5%. And
So they don't reap the benefits
they don't
of
get,
it.
yeah, because on the federal government side, they can't send it back and say you need to fix this. They just say no. And editors will sometimes send something back and say you need to fix this. Uh, but you know, but they're usually overwhelmed with things, and they're not going to spend the time unless there's something they really love in the text. Uh,
Hmm.
what they're more likely to do is not read the text because it's not in the right format, or it's hasn't been done correctly. Um, and you know, it's a really big step to go into the 5% who followed instructions rather than the vast majority who didn't. That is, it's really beneficial to be in that small group. So
This next question was just something like I came up with. It's just not kind of silly, but you as a writer, you've been writing for a while. Um, if you could eliminate or get rid of one word in the English like language that you absolutely hate,
oh,
what would it be?
actually, I'm famous for this. My In one of the lectures I give at Seton Hill every 6 months, I give people the 3 rules of professional writing. And I won't use the strong words, but the first one is spell check the manuscript.
Hmm.
And the second one is proofread the dang thing. And the third one is never use the word grimace in fiction unless describing a gargoyle. And if my students use the word grimace, they get a picture of the McDonald's character in the margin. And well, anyway, it's notorious at Seton Hill. We've had people show up dressed as Grimace, um, and I have two of our graduates put 2 grimaces in every book they publish. One of them has it in the contract, that there will be 2 grimaces, and it's for me, But it's just It's actually my favorite example of a lazy writer word. Nobody says that word in everyday life.
That's so
When we're
true.
writing, we slap it down like it means something. And if you look in the dictionary, it means facial expression.
It's like a filler, and
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
being lazy.
It's meaningless.
Um,
You have to modify it to have it mean anything.
totally guilty of that.
And no.
That
So
was a good grimace, though. That was a great grimace. Personally, as for me, I read a lot and I use Goodreads, but I'm also very reluctant to leave reviews unless it's something like it's incredibly good for me. But you kind of hit on it before. You said, well, just to start off, how do you leave critical suggestions, or like how do you judge another writer? I guess is my question.
yeah, so part of the reason, or actually the main reason I post reviews on Goodreads, and I typically review everything I finish, um, is that I'm a teacher, and
Mhm.
my students at Seton Hill, where we're teaching that it's an MFA in writing popular fiction. So they're writing a novel, and I am chewing them out royally. So I want them to be able to see that I don't care if it's a famous writer. If they do the same thing, so my Goodreads reviews, for instance, referring to the earlier question, they all list how many grimaces were in the book. In this Seven Grimace novel, um, because they need to see that I'm not kidding about this stuff. This is how I judge a book, and they have to see that. So that's typically my rule. If I have trouble with it, I'll mention it. And another thing, this is which as teachers we don't talk about sometimes, but the truth is that all books are a mixed bag, and I can't remember who it was who defined a novel as a manuscript of a certain length with something wrong with it. But they all have something we don't care for. So one of the interesting things is if the writer does something that you absolutely hate, but you keep turning the page, right?
But does that necessarily make it a bad novel, though? Like maybe
No. And as a teaching
exactly.
device, what you learn is, okay, so you hated this. Don't do that. But you were turning the pages. Why were you turning the pages? Learn from that. Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like you have to read stuff you don't like in order to know what
Yeah.
you
I
how to.
occasionally in antique stores back when we could go into stores. Uh, I pick up old popular fiction things from the 1800s or the early 1900s, especially like the boys science fiction books, and where they're taking dirigibles to Mars, or
Love it.
and it's partly because you read them and the writing is usually fairly poor, right? Sometimes the storytelling's pretty good, but the actual technique is bad, and it reminds you why we don't do that anymore. And it's an interesting exercise. You're reading stuff that's kind of bad, but is there any part of it that's redeeming? And often the answer is no, no, not at all. Everything about this is bad. And you know, writing is made up of a whole lot of different elements and skills.
Mhm.
And and music is a good analogy. There is wonderful music that's dead simple, um, and wonderful music that's terribly elaborate. And why would you have to pick between the two?
Thank you, Mr. Esaias. Did I say it right? Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time, and I really look forward to listening to you at the writers conference and learning so much more because this is awesome. And I wish I could be your student one day. Hopefully.
Thank you very much. Well, if you come to the conference, you will be my student, right?
I'm going to be one of the hosts, I think.
Ah, Well, in any case, listen
So
in.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
And it's uh, and thank you, and of course, thanks to the right stuff and the Lehigh Valley Writers, because um, it's organizations like that and pen writers that have made the Pennsylvania writing community so strong. Um, and I'm proud to have been invited to, to teach at the conference.
Fantastic. And I'm so proud to be part of this and thank them for letting me do this. Like, I really appreciate it. Charles. Awesome. But you have a wonderful evening and we'll see you in a few weeks.
A few weeks.
Bye.